Duke has 3 freshmen worth paying attention to for this season and beyond. This is Floor and Ceiling. Let's break them down. Jared McCain is the Duke freshman with the most hype, and he's enjoyed mixed results on the court so far. For the most part, it's boiled down to McCain's role. I had the chance to evaluate him live in person a few times when he was in high school in California, and just months ago, he was much more of a pure point guard. McCain monopolized the ball in his hands, he made most of the decisions for his team, and he was in a beneficial environment to him, with athletic above-the-rim bigs and shooters on the wings. But so far in his first season at Duke, McCain has almost exclusively been played off the ball. At just a bit over 17%, his usage is really small so far, and most of his shots have come from beyond the three-point line. McCain's 3 for me was actually a big question mark going into college. I always considered him to be more comfortable from the mid-range or even in the mid-post against smaller, weaker defenders. Up to this point though, McCain has been reliable from deep. He's shooting more than 4 triples a night, and he's making more than 40% of his three-pointers. However, it's worth noting that McCain is almost always acting as a spot-up shooter, or at most, running into a position where he can catch and then shoot. This usage and versatility should pay off for him in the long run. In some ways, it already has, because he looks way better from the outside than he did as a high school senior, but I'm also not convinced that this is the Duke guard's role long term. Still, as a freshman, scoring anything but threes has been an uphill climb for McCain. Athletically, he doesn't rely on explosiveness or size, but rather on craft and strength. And since he's not long or tall at about 6'3", this is posing limitations at the college level. McCain hasn't seen much success at the rim because a lot of the time he simply cannot beat his man off the bounce. The Blue Devils freshman cannot get to his preferred spots, and then he has to pass the ball out. On the chance that he does get all the way to the basket, McCain usually needs a screen or to be already moving downhill, something like attacking off the catch or off a curl. But then he cannot explode to finish over defenders, so he still needs to make adjustments to deal with length more consistently. Getting into his playmaking, I think McCain has been alright, but due to his off-ball role, he hasn't really been able to show off much facilitating, even though I think gradually this might become more apparent. Most of the time right now though, the ball will go to Tyrese Proctor, Jeremy Roach, or Kyle Filipowski, and they all have better cases than McCain, who has sometimes even played the 3 in a way to be running the team. Still, I've liked McCain's decision-making. By and large, he plays with his head up, and he makes quick choices to get Duke good looks at the basket. The same gist of everything that I've been mentioning applies to McCain's defensive outlook. His lack of length, size, and twitch can certainly be a deterrent. For instance, McCain has no blocks so far headed into the weekend, but his quick reactions and awareness can also lead to steals or moments on this end of the floor. He's also a really competitive rebounder, which should fare well in the future, hopefully as more of a point guard in grab-and-go situations. Looking to the rest of the year, the hope is that McCain can show more juice off the dribble and that he continues to shoot the ball well from 3. The on-ball reps though might have to wait, which is why for now, I'd be a fan of McCain returning to Duke for a second season, sort of like what Tyrese Proctor is currently doing. Otherwise, it's hard for me right now to consider McCain anything but a second rounder. Caleb Foster was highly regarded in high school, and there were many who thought he was snubbed from the 2023 McDonald's All-American game. As a high schooler at Notre Dame in Los Angeles, Foster was a point guard, but similar to McCain, his role has shifted in college with Duke. The main difference is that Foster is almost always looking for his own shot right now. He was also a score-first player in high school, but I thought there was some more playmaking mixed in. With Duke, he's neither assisting nor turning the ball over, Rather, his task is either to attack the basket or space the floor. Starting with that first area, Foster has a more dynamic first step than McCain. So when it comes to creating his own drives and going hard to the basket, I trust him a little bit more. Foster isn't overly creative. Most, if not all, of his drives will come in a straight line, but I think he's solid at leveraging his athleticism to get into the paint, and he knows how to keep defenders guessing with his change of pace. Foster is a good, although not great athlete, so having some stop and go to his game really helps. For the future though, I'm hoping to see Foster improve his handle. I see him as even more of a multi-year college prospect than McCain, so there should be time for this in theory, but the Duke freshman sins of being one-dimensional with his downhill drives. His handle can lack shake, tightness, and security. So this means that Foster cannot create space consistently, and he can be prone to avoidable turnovers. Going out to three, Foster is a willing shooter, but comparing him to McCain once again, he profiles as a less skilled one. His numbers for the season look okay. Foster takes 3 triples a game, and he makes 1/3 of those. That's not amazing, but it's not dismal either. However, his mechanics are fairly inconsistent, especially when he's under pressure from a solid contest. Right now, Foster cannot be relied on to create his own shot from way downtown, but again, since he's not really handling the ball that much for Duke, this means that he's mostly in a spot-up role. Going into this weekend, all of his 3-point makes had been assisted. The 19-year-old profiles a little bit better from the mid-range. So far as a freshman, we've seen some flashes of this, but in the big picture, it's a tiny sample size still. Right now, I think Foster could really benefit from another year in college to make a great case for himself in the 2025 NBA draft. Sean Stewart is a super bouncy 5-star recruit out of Montverde Academy, but he's still coming to terms with what is needed from him at Duke. Through the start of the season, Stewart is averaging a hair over 9 minutes a game, and even that average is lopsided. The Duke freshman has barely been on the court against high levels of competition. Prior to this weekend, he'd only seen 4 minutes against Arizona and Michigan State, and against Arkansas, only 3. At this stage, Stewart is going to be productive right at the rim. More than 9 in 10 of his shots have come at the basket, where he's shooting about 67%. Stewart is being fed really easy looks, and then he uses his size and bounce to put the ball in the hoop. Let's not forget, the Florida native looks like an incredible athlete. At 36 inches off the ground, he broke Duke's standing vertical record earlier this summer, which was previously held by none other than Zion Williamson. But as we step back from the rim, we still don't really know much about Stewart. He looked like a more willing shooter in high school, although not necessarily a good one, but so far in college, Stewart has taken no threes, he's missed both of his 2-point pull-ups, and he's also having a difficult time at the free throw line, although on a very small sample size. So right now, when it comes to him, this is more about projecting Stewart's future, rather than only looking at his present, which is still sort of being figured out. Down the line, I suspect that Stewart could be a small ball 5, or a forward with the measurements of a 4, but the skill set of a center. If I had to compare his long-term picture to a recent Duke to NBA prospect, it might be Marvin Bagley, because of Stewart's athleticism and rebounding, but simple game. The hope, though, is that Stewart can be a better defender than Bagley, who had short arms and still lacks instincts on this side of the ball. Now, Stewart's numbers are inflated for the season because of his low minutes and low level of competition that he's faced, but there are signs of him protecting the rim and also being mobile enough to step out into space, get steals, and blocks. Broadly though, the game still moves way too fast for him. He can gamble and put Duke in tough positions, so that's also why his minute count is yet to increase. At this juncture, it's looking like Stewart will need another year in college, but that doesn't have to be a bad thing at all, as we saw with Mark Williams or now with Kyle Filipowski. But even if just towards the end of this season, Stewart turning the corner would really help Duke. Filipowski would have a more athletic and versatile front court partner than Ryan Young, so at some point, I'd love to see Stewart earn consistent minutes. I think that could be a way for Duke to unlock some of their best lineups, especially in the front court, because I think him and Filipowski are interchangeable due to Flip's skill set and size, plus Stewart's athleticism and paint-oriented offense.